Hello, hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind, and today we're going to be talking to you about more Olympic basketball. We're going to be talking about the women's 5-on-5 and the women's 3-on-3. Those are the things for today. So if you're waiting for Raptors stuff, keep on waiting, keep on tuning in, like, comment, and subscribe on your way in. Hopefully you still comment and subscribe on the way out. But we will be talking about the Raptors maybe for just a small bit at some point. I guess we signed Bruno Fernando, I believe. Sorry if I'm pronouncing the man's name wrong, but I think the more important thing right now is that we are talking about Olympic basketball because that's the basketball that is being played. How are you guys doing? Beyond, I'm going to start with you.
I'm good, man. Just a summer day, enjoying the weather. I can't complain, man. Watch a lot of Olympics.
And coach, how are you doing?
Ditto. Same thing. Summer day, watching the Olympics. I love this time of year. Every 4 years that we have the Summer Olympics, and I get to learn more about just the different sports, things of that nature. It's been a while since I recall seeing the Summer Olympics, watching it this intently, I should say, and it's just good to catch up on some of these things.
For sure.
Yeah, the
I
location has helped a lot. Like being in Paris does help a lot more than
Yes.
some of the other cities they've had recently. And
well,
times,
it's yeah, especially since you don't have to wake up at 3 in the morning to watch a game. It's
Sweet.
uh it's quite a blessing. It's like, oh, you wake up late, the game's still on, or whatever. So it is nice. Of course, the next Olympics that is going to be in the summer is going to be on this continent in LA. So that'll also be quite
Hey,
nice.
only two to
uh,
3 hours behind that.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, of course, there's other things like, certain things about track and field, with, certain people not being able to warm up, and that may be affecting results. Maybe we'll talk about that as an Olympic wrap up at, next time we film. But today we're going to be talking about the basketball. So let's start with the women's basketball since that, in terms of 5-on-5 competition, is over. It is donezo. They did not do well. This is, relative to expectations, one of the worst performances that you could have expected because they were expected to be in the hunt for a potential medal here. Maybe not number one, maybe not the gold, but they were expected to be a competitive squad. And as the tournament went on, it wasn't just turnovers, it was just a lack of execution on both ends of the ball. Um, I'm not sure if you guys want to, discuss that at all right now.
I think. I'll jump in because there's been something that's been brewing for me for about 3 4 days. Like I'm just like we can't have. Right now, we're supposed to be moving in quote the golden era, right? Not just for the men, but also for the women. We're going to have a new basketball team in Toronto in 2026. We've had good performances, as you said previously, in Tokyo, where I think we came fifth or so, or fourth. So I can't remember, it was fifth or fourth, I can't remember, but it was a good result. We were in the middle round. You're going to tell me now, leading after all that, we had top five picks coming out of the WNBA draft to build this momentum, and for this to be what came to be the result. I mentioned you guys offline just before we started. If it wasn't for the women's soccer team and all the all the the hot bleep that was in this case here, this would be the biggest story when it comes to team sports in the Olympics. This for a team that had the delta from a team what you expected from them to what the result is. There's no bigger gap, and I include the women's soccer team. So wherever you want to say, I mean, heck, there are a couple of penalty kicks in this case be in the quarterfinals. Like these guys, man, I mean they come up in the first game and they get rolled by France by at one point about 30-point lead. You're going to tell me France's team is 30 points better than Canada's team? I find that hard to believe. I'm sorry. I don't see that. They finally decide for a little bit, for a half and change, they played against Australia, and then they kind of withered away again. And then the one to make history, you gotta love when you're in the history books. Hey, props to Nigeria. but you don't want to be making people making their name off of you when they put in the history books. You know that like it's an embarrassment. I'm sorry, it's an embarrassment all around. The defense stunk. I don't know the rotations. I think our buddy Paul Anderson, props to him. I do think he's hitting on something where it's like some of these guys might have been a little long in the tooth, just like how we saw in this case here, the men's soccer team. Love Hutchinson, good, strong defender in this case here. Props to him. Send him up the pasture because it was a real rough ride in this case in the World Cup. And lo and behold, what happened next year? Get two young thoroughbreds in the back, and we actually are competitive now in this case here on the international stage. Some of these folks might have to kind of get the pink slip. Sorry, man, and just go with the youth movement because this was not good, man. This was pretty embarrassing. That's my point on it. Like I I tried to have a team sport where we had such a bad result.
Yeah, it was pretty tough. Coach, your thoughts or
Well,
prayers?
I've been watching the yeah. So I get to see this team a few years ago play and practice in Edmonton at the women's national team center, and you know, phenomenal, very good team, well run, organized, structured. They had a lot of great players then. It's not that they don't now, but I keep reading about this thing how they're passing the torch to the next generation. You flamed out in the Olympics. Sometimes this thing does happen. When I watched the game against France, there were so many defensive mistakes. There was very few closeouts on their shooters. I don't know how many times I saw Gabby Williams get open threes. I really can't count how many times I
Not
noticed
getting
that.
back on defense, coach. Like I don't know how many fast breaks France was just running around, just like with no resistance.
Yeah. And I have a colleague or a friend on the bench who's been with Team Canada for a good decade or so, and I certainly feel bad for him and what the staff, the players per se, but um, this was just I think they flamed out. I think they had a really really bad game against France, and it's almost like they lost their momentum afterwards. Hard to get back on track. Because I keep reading things on how Kia Nurse showed up a week before, and I think it was Bridget Carlton, I think it's her name. She also showed up a week before the Olympics. And okay, if that's the case, you've got to somehow bring players in beforehand tougher in the middle of the WNBA season, but
That's but that's the
none
point,
of the other countries are going
right?
are going through that too as
What
well.
the schedule just snuck up on Team Canada? Oh my gosh, what's
Yeah,
going on here? What's this All Star game? What's going on here? Like, come on, man.
Yeah,
yeah.
beyond.
They're going to have to make some changes moving forward. It's not going to be players. I can maybe see some coaching staff changes potentially. We'll see what comes, but because you can't go winless when you had a team that was predicted to at least medal in the Olympics.
So yeah, sorry, you were
So
saying about basically how your friend is on the bench.
yeah, and look, I know he was a university coach for a while. He's been with the national team now, I think, for a good 10 years in his role. And I know certainly he wants to medal, as any coach would moving forward, but this is tough for a program that was expected to medal. Were they expected to beat the Americans? No, I don't think so. Were they expected to bronze or silver, I think, in these Olympics, or at least compete for those spots? Yes. You can't go 0-3 or 0-4, whatever they did, and can have take any positives from that. You can't whatsoever. So we'll see what's going to happen in 2028 or with this program moving forward. I do expect in 2028 they'll be better, but it's too bad when you have all these expectations to medal or at least win a few games and you don't.
Right. And I mean, you compare that to, the men's side where they came in and it's like they were practicing for like a month before. I know it's not as easy in terms of the training schedule with the W being the W, but to your point beyond, I mean, everyone had the same schedule for more or less. That's where most of the athletes are coming from anyways, for the most part. So, I mean, yeah, you got to figure it out. Whatever you got to do to figure out, you got to figure it out, and you got to figure it out quick because that is just, frankly, it's unacceptable. It made a lot of people tune out. A lot of people that were really hoping for these things tune out. There are some people that stayed and remain faithful throughout this tournament run, which is, that's obviously really beautiful to see. But at some point, it's kind of on you to, you know, figure this stuff out and have everyone prepared and ready.
Yeah, I think, and it's broadening it out to an Olympic standpoint. And this is not an Olympic podcast, obviously, overall from an event standpoint. But to me, just from Canada's perspective, when it comes to team events, I think the two groups I think that have been the most disappointing from a team perspective is the women's basketball team. And honestly, I pretty much will say everyone in rowing. Like those two areas, like we used to be rowing dominance, and now it's like we got one medal out of all the rowing events. That's like that's like unheard of. Like, so between those two groups, the women's basketball, considering how many resources we have and stuff like that, we should be in a better spot than where we are right now. I'm extremely disappointed, but hey, we got another team still hanging around, so I'm not sure if there's anything else you guys want to discuss about the women's team, but I am curious to see what young players they add to the roster that could maybe help kind of like lift this team a little bit because you got some young talent coming up,
Yep.
and that sometimes fresh blood is what you need too. But to Coach's point, coaching is going to be an issue, man. Like that's got to be addressed. I don't know how they're going to address it because they just changed out the coach. I think in this case, very recently. So you're usually you don't want to make too many. We know from a professional standpoint, you don't want to be changing the head of state too many times before they start looking at you next. So,
Well, the coach I know is signed through 2026, and that's where the World Cup for basketball will be held in Germany at that time. He's signed through then, but I think with Aaliyah Edwards, even though I know she's been in the program for a while, she's still young. Omax's sister, I think her name's Cassandra Prosper, and the Swords girl who's going to University of Michigan. There's talent coming, right? And you just got to make sure we capitalize on that because you said something earlier that this is the golden age of Canada basketball, which I agree with you. Now the women, I feel hit that their stride a bit before the men did, but at the same time, if it's the golden age of basketball, you can't go winless in the Olympics and
no.
call it the golden age of basketball.
Yeah, you need to at least be in the hunt for a medal,
Yeah,
really, and
yeah,
that's just what it is. I mean, this is you're gonna miss out, and then have everyone catch up. And you've spent a lot of time building the infrastructure on the men's and the women's side to get it to where it is, and that side needs to step up now. At one point, it was the other way around. Now we got to get there with both teams. I will actually mention this really quickly. The 3-on-3 women's, it actually just wrapped up as we were talking. The women lost. It was the bronze game, so we lost by 3 points. And I guess how it goes is I'm not going to explain all the rules, but if you run out of time, it's whoever has the most amount, it seems, is the team that wins in these cases. So we were ahead, and then I just checked, and we are not ahead, and they lost to the United States.
No, can I
But
make
they
a
made it,
point?
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I think Canadian basketball may have to look into a little bit more,
Hmm.
and we did this a lot when it came to some other programs. I think I remember specifically it was about swimming, right? And if I think it's back, it was back when they had the own the podium mindset. Started after Vancouver, out by your neck of the woods there, Kenya, and
Hmm.
with that Olympics, where it's like we're looking to own the podium. And that philosophy's kind of been permeated for the last 10 years. And I like it because in this case, we're not just showing up here to have a good time. I heard Glenroy Gilbert mention that just a couple of days ago. I do think though, and when the swimming, which has been kind of like swimming has come back now to us a little bit. But when they did that little review and that research or whatever you want to call it, a white paper with it, they took the study and figured out like, okay, us as a country, essentially population wise, the same as Australia. Why is Australia in this case, thriving? They're so much better than we are. And what are they doing? What structures and what infrastructure are they building? What training programs are they building around their athletes or support money, wherever, to get to the position where they, at the size they are competing with the United States and China for like medals overall, right? So one of the things they noticed was focusing on particular things that they thought were strengths and focusing on like, okay, well, how much medals can we get? So if swimming or gymnastics, you could attain a lot of medals that way and kind of game the system. Fine, that's one way. But the second thing you have to ask yourself is when it comes to team sports, Australia always seems to compete very well, right? And both men's and women's, if we're just going back to basketball, what are they doing? Now, one thing they have is they have a thriving league in their country. Now, I'm not saying the CEBL is going to get there anytime soon, but it's kind of something that's growing, which is good. And let's face it, to the point that Coach mentioned, the more college kids that go to college in the States, that is also good for a training ground. But we have to find some way to kind of figure a way to harness that better than what we're doing right now, because Australia's got that down to a T.
They do. And we've been trying to follow their model. I know in basketball with our national programs for close to 20 years now, trying to take whatever Australia is doing and try to replicate this in Canada. I heard about it when I was a teenager from some coaches who were involved with the national team then. And I mean, as we look forward the last 15 to 20 years, it's actually there's been some benefits to that. If we've had some success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll get to the main course now.
Absolutely. So I think for that, all things basketball, we're gonna end it here. But for the all things to do with the men's side, if you haven't seen it already, go click on that video. Just click on my channel and it will be there. With that being said, that's all, folks. So stay tuned for Raptors news soon.